Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We will get started in just a minute. Thank you for your patience. While people are trickling in, I will just get started here and make sure that we are, in fact, recording. Yes. Okay, great. So thank you all for joining us today for the first of the 2025 Raising Ambition Through Partnership webinar series. This series is in its third year now, and we are excited to start this year off talking about appliance efficiency in NDCs 3.0. My name is Sarah Hertel, and I'm the NDC Enhancement Knowledge Specialist with the NDC Partnership, and I am in charge of running this webinar series. So you may have seen me last year as well. Before we get started with everything, I wanted to point your attention to the interpretation ability. We are pleased to offer interpretation in both Spanish and French for this session. So if you would like to listen to the webinar in a language other than the default language of English, please follow the instructions on this screen. I will also read them here. At the bottom of your Zoom window, click on the icon that looks like a globe to access the interpretation settings. Once you click on the interpretation icon, a pop-up window will appear showing the available languages for interpretation. You can then select your preferred language from the list. And then to hear the interpretation clearly, please mute the original audio to avoid overlapping sound. And you can do this by clicking the mute original audio option. If you have any questions or issues with that, please feel free to use the chat and I will help to the best of my ability. Some additional housekeeping before we get started. So there are two different functions here for us to communicate with each other. There is a chat and a Q&A, a question and answer function. So please feel free to use the chat throughout the session to share comments, resources, or engage with other participants. We encourage you to introduce yourselves and share what organization or country you're joining from. But if you have specific questions for our speakers, please utilize the question and answer function. You should see that also at the bottom of your Zoom screen where it will say Q&A, and that is where you can add your questions. Please add them as you have them throughout the webinar, and we will have a dedicated question and answer session at the end. For presentation slides and resources, we will make all materials from today's session, including the PowerPoint and highlighted resources, available through email following the event for all those that have registered. And we are also recording this session, and it will be uploaded to the NDC Partnership YouTube channel. So by participating in this session, you consent to being recorded, and really appreciate that consent here. And thank you for your attention to these notes. We're excited to have you here with us today and hope you find this session engaging and informative. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat and I will be able to respond to you. And we are able to now get started. As I said, the webinar series is new for this last couple of years, but the webinar that we will be hosting today is on appliance efficiency, with the hopes that we will highlight the role of appliance efficiency in achieving net zero emissions by 2050, introducing the Net Zero Appliances NDC Toolkit from CLASP and show how it can be used, and also hear from governments about how they will include appliance energy efficiency in their NDCs. And with that, I will turn to my colleague Rosa Garcia from SE for All, and will allow her to begin her presentation. So Rosa, please.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am Rosa Garcia. I am Energy Efficiency and Cooling Officer at SE for All, and I am thrilled to be part of this webinar, which will provide valuable insights as well as we work to harness the power of energy efficiency in our climate efforts. Special thanks to the NDC Partnership and CLASP for bringing us together. Thanks to our brilliant speakers today and to everyone tuning in today. As countries revise the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement, the role of energy efficiency becomes increasingly critical. Energy efficiency in appliances represents a huge opportunity for countries, since only 47% of current nationally determined contributions mention appliances, and just 25% of them include policies to reduce their environmental impact. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. At SE for All, we work at the intersection of energy, climate, and development. We are committed to driving global energy transitions that are inclusive, sustainable, and equitable. Our vision is a world where everyone, everywhere, can live a dignified life on a healthy planet powered by sustainable energy. And energy efficiency is central to this effort. Next slide, please. Thanks. At SE for All, we collaborate with governments and partners to unlock the benefits of energy efficiency. Because energy efficiency, it's a resource that exists in abundance and one of the most cost-effective ways to reduce carbon emissions while delivering a wide array of socioeconomic benefits. And recognizing the instrumental role of energy efficiency, at COP28, countries committed to double the rate of energy efficiency progress by 2030. This commitment is a game changer, but it is up to us to ensure these pledges are turned into action, and this is why we are here today. If we double the rate of energy efficiency improvement, we can reduce CO2 emissions by 7 gigatons, which is a monumental step forward in achieving the Paris Agreement targets. We could create millions of new jobs globally, spanning across sectors like manufacturing, building renovations, construction, industry, and transportation. In developed countries, households and businesses would see their energy bills decrease by over 1/3, freeing up resources for other essential needs. Enhancing the energy efficiency of our grids could also support the integration of more renewable energy, but it doesn't end there. Energy efficient systems doesn't just keep the lights on. They expand productive energy uses in ways that transform lives. For example, they provide more energy to power LED lighting, efficient air conditioners, fans, refrigerators, and many other appliances that are part of the net zero heroes of energy efficient solutions. If we want to double the rate of energy efficiency progress this decade and to put the world in a path toward net zero, we need not only to improve faster, but also to be more ambitious. Next slide, please. And there is only so much one organization can do. And this is why in 2019, the 3% Club was launched at the UN Secretary General's Climate Summit as a collaboration between governments and supporting organizations. In 2021, the 3% Club was rebranded as Mission Efficiency, which is now a collective of commitments and actions from a coalition of governments and organizations that come together to drive progress towards the goal of doubling energy efficiency. Next slide, please. Thank you. As part of this effort, Mission Efficiency works with partners to provide tools and knowledge to take energy efficiency action across sectors. And to help countries to identify priority sectors for energy efficiency action, UNIDO, IEA, and SE for All collaborated on the development of this toolkit available in the Mission Efficiency website, which provides a score by sector showing the sectors with the highest potential for energy savings. In the second step, this toolkit shows available partner tools and resources that can help countries to take action. Next one, please. Thank you. Additionally, Mission Efficiency and the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency are organizing a series of regional webinars to provide insights, share best practices, and highlight the importance of energy efficiency in achieving NDC targets. These webinars bring together policymakers to discuss challenges such as cross-ministerial coordination and local implementation. Please visit the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency website to learn more. And finally, in the next slide, thank you. I want to end by inviting you to join this energy efficiency ecosystem to work closely with us and unlock the power of energy efficiency. So I will end here. Thank you so much for inviting me again, and I wish you a fruitful conversation. Over to you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you so much, Rosa, for that presentation. And if you have any questions for Rosa, please feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. And our next panelist, happy to introduce Sophie Attali from the IEA. Sophie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Sophie Attali. I'm a policy analyst at the Energy Efficiency and Inclusive Transition Office at the IEA. And I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to speak today on appliances because it's my field of expertise also, and more specifically on doubling the rate of energy efficiency progress. What do we mean by this complex of doubling? Next slide, please. So this doubling concept started with an IEA analysis back in 2021, where we wondered what policy should be implemented to reach net zero emission by 2050. And since then, the topic has been discussed in various international gatherings, and the IEA has been calling for stronger policy action towards the goal of doubling energy efficiency progress this decade. It was discussed at all of our global annual energy efficiency conferences, but also at other gatherings such as the G7 or the G20 in India. And this led slowly to it laid the groundwork for a formal policy agreement on doubling the goal at COP28 in Dubai. And we were very happy, though it means a challenge, that the final COP28 text calls on parties to contribute to the tripling renewable energy capacity globally and doubling the global average annual rate of energy efficiency improvements by 2030. So it means that almost every national government on the planet has now endorsed this goal of doubling energy efficiency progress this decade. Next slide, please. This graph shows actually that where the effort will come from to reach net zero emissions. Doubling energy efficiency and tripling renewables contribute 2/3 for the emission reductions, and doubling efficiency is actually the largest share of emission reduction. This is why it's so important, and it covers all sectors, including appliances and equipment. Next slide. So what do we actually mean when we speak about the doubling? So we are speaking about primary energy intensity and its annual improvement globally. So you can see on the left, the gray bar is the average that we used to see during the past decade in 2010, 2019, roughly 2% improvement per year. And you can also see on the right-hand side, the green bar is the annual improvement of 4%. That is the doubling, going from 2 to 4% improvement per year that is needed by 2030 to be on line with the net zero objectives. So as a result, we can see that even 2024 doesn't have very good result because the improvement is around 1% only. And the world is currently not on track yet to achieve this ambition with regards to energy efficiency. However, we also know that in the past decade, at least 9 out of 10 countries have managed to reach this 4% level at least once, which demonstrate that it is possible to do, but what we need is policy implementation to ramp up if we want to reach those levels again and sustain them. Next slide, please. So what does it mean for appliances? We know also, thanks to our scenarios, that the electricity consumption for appliances and equipment is going to rise. And this is actually a good news in many places of the world because it means that the quality of life is improving. But we also know that it's going above the requested levels to be in line with the net zero objective by 2030. So since it's going to rise, it's absolutely crucial that it rises super efficiently, and even in the more developed economies where the consumption should maybe decrease. So to get on track with the net zero scenario, most efficient appliances and equipment placed on the market and sold in 2030 would need to match today's best technology. And to do this, we need policies. So next slide, please. Tracking policies. So at the IEA, we have the experience to do this, and we track both their existence, the existence of policies for appliances. So this means when the laws and the regulations are passed, but also their stringency. So we have developed an index to evaluate the policies that are in place, if they are stringent enough to reach the net zero goals. And if the index is at 100, it means we are on track. This slide is about MEPS, so minimum energy performance standards, for lighting and for air conditioners. So lighting are the two first bars on the left, and air conditioners the right-hand bars. And the bars actually show the range of policy levels. So for lighting in 2010, we can see that it was the policies in place were going almost from zero, no impact, to an energy index of 80, just right above 80. And we can see with the next bar, the light blue one for lighting in 2024, that there have been progresses. And there have been progresses on the two fields, that is, more countries have adopted regulation, MEPS, and also the stringency has improved. So we are approaching, let's say, our 100 index. However, we are not there yet. And you can see also with the green dot, I don't know if it's green on your screen, there is a dot above the second bar at 140 level. This is the level of the current best-in-class products for lighting, and which means, and that's rather good news, that this is not a technical problem, because we already have the products on the market, not as prototypes, as real marketed products. We have them that are already good enough to reach this objective. The problem is to make them the normal choice for everyone. And we also see the same evolution for air conditioners, where unfortunately the energy index is not so good, but it's still improving. We can see the same kind of development with more countries adopting policies and the stringency also being better. So we know that this kind of analysis exists for many types of technologies. It's not only for lighting and for air conditioners, but we need really to how can I say, to improve the stringency and to make sure that these policies are enforced correctly. And next slide, please. So this graph is very important, because very often when we speak with governments, we are told that it's impossible to have so stringent policies because the cost would make it an impossible barrier to overcome. So we bought some market data that was crowdsourced in 3 regions of the world. So we have at the bottom Southeast Asia, in the middle Latin America, and at the top Sub-Saharan Africa. And this slide is for air conditioners, but we have similar data for refrigerators and also for fans to some extent. And what this data shows, so this is market price, but according to efficiency. So on the left, it's low efficiency, in the middle, medium efficiency, and on the right, high efficiency. And we can see with this red line that for a same level of price, we have different levels of efficiency. And this means that efficient products are not necessarily more expensive than non-efficient products, because the prices of products on the market depends on many, many functionalities and things other than efficiency. Of course, the markets are different. We can see that there are a lot of products offered on the Southeast Asia market, which is probably more mature than the other two, but the trend is exactly the same, that energy efficiency does not necessarily cost more. And we hope that this type of graph can bring confidence to governments to take action and develop and update their appliance policies, because we know they bring results in terms of energy consumption reduction relatively quickly compared to other sectors, and that they are very positive for other aspects on the economy. So on the next slide, we will see one of these aspects, which is affordability. Affordability, of course, is a topic that is at the top of many policy agendas for obvious reasons. And our analysis shows that efficiency is one of the best levers to structurally lower energy bills and increase access to affordable energy services. Because not only are many efficient technology cost competitive with inefficient models, as we just saw previously, but you can buy them, but you can over the lifetime, they are significantly cheaper due to their low energy use. This is an illustration for cold appliances in Ghana, domestic cold appliances in Ghana. But we have examples for other technologies, such as air conditioners, heat pumps, or electric vehicles in a number of regions, including Latin America, Southeast Asia, or other African countries. So I think with this, I would like to conclude with 3 slides. So the next slide is the tools that the IEA develops to support appliance energy efficiency policies. So I will start with what we call the policy package, and all these tools are available on our website. Because to accelerate the progress for appliances, the most effective policy strategy is an integrated approach, combining regulation, information, and incentives. When the 3 are implemented together, we have evidence that it works really well. It works on the long run, and even the longer these programs are applied, the more results they provide. So this is really important, and this policy package provides all the details. We have accompanied this policy package with a toolkit that was developed and is updated regularly. And last year, we included a doubling toolkit. There is one specific chapter on appliances with a lot of case studies illustrating how to pragmatically do this and enforce those policies. We also coordinate the SEED initiative. So SEED stands for Super Efficient Equipment and Appliance Deployment. In this forum, we have 25 member governments that share a lot of analyses and solutions, discuss future policy development, and we also try to organize a presence at international events to make sure that the voice of energy efficiency, particularly on appliances, is really heard. And finally, for this slide, we've also launched last year an online training course on appliance energy efficiency policies, and this course is open to everyone. You can enroll and ask us questions. We'll be more than happy to answer on very detailed questions if you want to. And in the next slide, we want to speak about this coming event in April, which is the 20th Energy Efficiency Policy Training Week, which will be held in Paris at the IEA headquarters. I really encourage you to apply or have your colleague apply if they are policymakers in the field of appliances, of course, but we also have a work stream on buildings, on transport, on industry, and on indicators and evaluation. I think it's been 10 years now that we are organizing these training weeks, 2 to 3 per year, which means that now we have a community of nearly 3,000 practitioners that have been trained during these training weeks. And it's a very nice community that keep on exchanging, and it's a wonderful opportunity to reflect really on the details of the policies, including for appliances. And in my last slide, I would like to remind you that we are holding our 10th annual Global Conference on Energy Efficiency. This will be the biggest one because it's the 10th anniversary. It will be co-hosted by the European Commission and will happen on June 12th and 13th in Brussels this year. The key focus will be on how to implement the goal of doubling energy efficiency and how to bring about the affordable and secure energy system that is needed to achieve our shared climate goals. The event will provide an important forum for ministers, so it's really high level, and CEOs and other leading global voices to drive action on energy efficiency. Although it is held in Europe this time, the discussion will still very much be global in nature. And I think the ministers are right now in the process of getting the invitations. So I invite you to really participate in this event because it's a major one and it's very important to set the goals for this decade. And with this, I thank you very much and I'll be happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sophie. And as before, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen. And thank you for all participating in the chat. It's great to see so many different types of organizations represented here. So next we have up CLASP, and Lauren will give her presentation of the very exciting Net Zero Appliances NDC Toolkit. So Lauren, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this wonderful webinar. Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Boucher, and I'm a senior manager at CLASP supporting research. And I'm going to introduce our Net Zero Appliances NDC Toolkit. Next slide. So first, a little bit about CLASP. CLASP is the leading global authority on efficient appliances' role in fighting climate change and improving people's lives. An international NGO with over 25 years of expertise and offices in 4 continents, CLASP collaborates with policymakers, industry leaders, and other experts to create a more sustainable future for both people and planet. CLASP focuses on appliances most critical to reducing emissions and improving lives, such as fans, air conditioners, refrigerators, and solar water pumps, just to name a few. We accelerate smart policy, market developing, and financing, working closely with governments, civil society, organizations, manufacturers, and other key stakeholders. Next slide. A little bit on where we work. CLASP has worked with over 90 countries implementing projects, programs, and partnerships. Here you'll see on the map some of our recent work. In terms of climate mitigation, we've reduced 2030 CO2 levels by over 1.6 gigatons by providing data and analysis to inform more than 80 policies globally. And on the clean energy access side, over 1.5 million people have been supported with innovative solar solutions, and over 300,000 solar appliances have been provided to households, businesses, and farmers through our clean energy access programs. Next slide. So some background on appliances. Appliances are major, appliances and equipment are widely used. They're used to cool our buildings, drive industrial processes, light our rooms and offices, etc. And in 2023, CLASP sought to quantify the environmental impact of appliances and equipment globally. To do this, we reapportioned IEA emissions data from the residential buildings, commercial buildings, and industrial sector to estimate the scale of their impact. And when we did that, we found that in total, appliances and equipment are responsible for a shocking 39% of all energy-related CO2 emissions. So when you add up their contribution across multiple sectors, they're responsible for quite a large share. Next slide. But efficient appliances are a key solution to the climate crisis. They sit at the intersection of climate change mitigation, as well as climate change adaptation and resilience. From a mitigation perspective, efficient appliances can help lower demand for energy, reducing emissions, and also allowing for easier integration of renewables, so supporting other goals such as the tripling target for renewable energy. And then from a resilience perspective, efficient appliances can drive access to cooling, better access to information, improve food security, better health, and productivity. Next slide. So in terms of where the opportunity is for appliance energy efficiency, CLAS launched a report titled Net Zero Heroes in 2023, where we wanted to model, what efficiency targets would be necessary for appliance and equipment to meet global net zero targets by 2050. And so looking at this graph, what you'll see is we compared emissions, those are the bars, in IEA's net zero scenario, and then modeled using CLAS modeling tool MEPC, the impact of meeting stringent yet achievable efficiency targets for 10 appliances and equipment. The red line shows what would happen under business as usual. So that is, basically existing policies. The orange line shows existing global benchmarks. So those represent really the best policies, MEPS policies that are in place today for appliances and equipment. And then the teal line shows our net zero hero scenario. And this is a scenario where we introduced specific targets for 10 appliances and equipment that would get the sector on a path toward net zero. You'll notice it's not quite at net zero in 2050, just due to the fact that there are some, we predict that there will be some segments of the market that will be hard to decarbonize, but we get very, very close. And so meeting targets for these appliances can avoid nearly 9 gigatons of CO2 in 2050. So a huge opportunity. Those 10 targets are on the next slide, and we can discuss them. So the 10 targets that we identified in that report are very ambitious, but they're not out of reach. Appliance standards and labeling programs have been around for decades and are widely used and cost effective. According to the IEA, over 120 countries have MEPs in place for at least one end use, and development of these policies has increased in recent years and is expected to continue. We know that these policies are extremely cost effective. IEA data shows that the benefits of longstanding efficiency programs outweigh the cost by a margin of nearly 4 to 1. And as Sophie presented, efficient appliances are not necessarily more expensive than their conventional counterparts. And when we factor in the life cycle cost of the ownership of the appliance, they are significantly cheaper to operate over their lifetime. The targets that we identified in the net zero hero scenario are aligned to existing efficiency targets where they exist. For example, we aligned the lighting target to the Minamata Convention on Mercury, which aims to phase out CFL bulbs. And also many targets are aligned to other initiatives like the Seed Product Efficiency Call to Action, which aim to double the efficiency for products such as refrigerators, motors, lighting, and refrigerators. So these targets are very ambitious, but they can be achievable if significant investment is made in the near term to make them happen. Next slide. So now the connection to NDCs. In 2023, CLAS published a report that assessed how appliances and equipment were included in NDCs. We ran keyword searches for specific appliances, such as air conditioners, refrigerators, industrial motor systems, et cetera, and key appliance efficiency policies, such as minimum energy performance standards and appliance labeling programs. Our findings found that appliances and equipment are mentioned in about half of NDCs, and that's looking at NDCs 1.0 and 2.0. And very few NDCs mention, the specific actions that need to be taken to improve appliances' contribution to climate change. So fewer than 25% of NDCs mentioned policies such as MEPS or appliance labels. Next slide. But there's a significant opportunity this year to elevate the status of appliances and efficiency in NDCs 3.0. These NDCs are technically due in February. And following the findings of the global stocktake in 2023, it's important that countries make sure that these NDCs are as ambitious as possible and ideally in line with the goals of the Paris Agreement. We think that appliances offer a huge opportunity to seize additional avoided tons in the future, while also delivering many, many benefits to consumer in the form of reduced life cycle costs, expanded energy access, improved climate resilience, etc. Next slide. So there should be a video here to play. I'll play. It looks like the sound is not working. That's okay. We can pause the video and I can just continue on. So last fall, class launched the Net Zero Appliances NDC Toolkit. And this is a resource for policymakers, but also other stakeholders supporting NDCs. And it explains why appliances matter and provides clear instructions for incorporating appliance efficiency into the next round of NDCs. So I will share my screen and we can take a quick tour of the appliance toolkit now. So this is the Net Zero Appliances NDC Toolkit, which is available on class website at class.ngo. I will share the link in the chat shortly. But the toolkit is divided into 7 components. There's a primer on how to use the toolkit, a section on the benefits of net zero appliances, which is very similar to what we've discussed on this webinar today. We have a series of recommendations for drafting NDCs. So these are considerations that governments can take when thinking about how to integrate appliances into NDC 3.0. We have some example NDC language, some examples of appliances in existing NDCs, country fact sheets, and additional resources. So we'll take a deep dive in the recommendations, example language, and the country fact sheets today. So moving to the recommendations, we have a series of bulleted recommendations for policymakers before drafting, and then while drafting their NDC. So these can be considered as a step-by-step guide that provides policymakers with tips and resources. Moving on to the example NDC language, we understand that NDCs are nationally determined and country-led. We wanted to provide some illustrative languages to show governments how specific texts could look in their NDC. So we created 2 fictional profiles for 2 countries and then provided some sample language based on those fictional countries' needs. The appliances and existing NDC section, this is a short summary of just some of the ways that countries have incorporated NDCs into their past NDCs. And these excerpts come from the report I referenced earlier, which looked at how appliances are incorporated into NDCs 1.0 and 2.0. And then we have our country fact sheets. And we have specific country level data that pulls from our Net Zero Hero analysis that we completed in 2023. And this provides country specific data on appliance efficiency for about 160 countries. So here we have a short section about some of the benefits of appliance efficiency, and then we have those specific expected avoided emissions from meeting the Net Zero Hero targets for specific appliances and equipment. There's also a description of what those targets are, as well as the recommendations. So I will stop there for now and add information about how to get in touch with CLASP in the chat. If you are supporting an NDC or know a government that would like support with their NDC, you may email CLASP at ndcs@clasp.ngo. And thank you very much. Back to you, Sophie, or back to you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing that. And I put the link in the chat as well, but Lauren's also included the NDC's email address for CLASP. So thank you so much for that. So we've now concluded our technical portion of the webinar, and we'll be moving on to discussing country NDCs and appliance efficiencies within them. And our first country is Brazil. So Alexandra, I can ask you to join here and present your NDC information.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. Today, I'm representing the Ministry of Mines and Energy in Brazil. I work as the coordinator of projects of energy efficiency there. And considering the policies that in a way contribute for the mitigation and adaptation for climate change, Brazil has been integrating the policies of energy efficiency as an instrument to achieve some of our goals that were established in on the international agreements and also in our national plans of development. And so considering the aspects of energy transition and planning, we have three main instruments here in Brazil. So we have the 10-year expansion plan, which is called PDE. It's a medium-term instrument. We also have the Brazil's energy plan, the PNE, which is a long-term. It's designed for 50 years, and we also have the Brazil's energy transition plan. We've just published the policy for energy transition here in Brazil, and we are now designing the energy transition plan, in which we are integrating the energy efficiency policies regarding the MAPS policy, the policy related to the endorsement seal, and the label classification for energy efficiency. And we also have the climate plan, and that this national plan for climate change is being designed right now. It has two parts, the adaptation part and the mitigation part, and it's still in phase of development. And the expectation is that it's concluded this semester, this year. And we also have the New Industry Brazil. It's a plan for the reindustrialization of our country. And there we also had the preoccupation to integrate into this new industry plan the measures that we are adopting to integrate maps for appliances and our national energy conservation program that's dedicated to the endorsement seal. And finally, we can mention these other two plans, the ecological transformation plan and the Brazil's 2050 strategy, that are also in process of development in which the area of energy efficiency has contributed with the objective that the respective policies are considered. So next slide, please. So giving some highlights for the impact that we identify from the energy efficiency policies for appliances. I've brought here some projections from our 10-year expansion plan for 2034 for the residential sector, in which we can notice the expectation of a reduction on our energy consumed regarding appliances. So here we can highlight the reduction due to air conditioners and refrigerators, for example, in which we expect a reduction of 14% in the residential consumption for air conditioners, considering 2034 compared to 2024. And for refrigerators, a reduction of 21%. So in total, the gains in electrical efficiency in Brazil homes will reach 14 terawatt hour in 2034, corresponding to 6.2% of total consumption of the year of 2034. And these projections include regulations on minimum energy performance standards for all these appliances that you can see on screen, as refrigerators, air conditioners, freezers, and light bulbs. And so it's, in summary, it's a part of what we are doing regarding appliances. We also have this program, the energy efficiency label program, in which we also work on the updating of the levels of classification for all these appliances. And as I said, we also have this program called ProCell, in which we recognize the best practices. So it's a kind of a tripod for the energy efficiency policy for appliances here in Brazil. And I believe in summary, that's it. And I will be very happy to answer your questions if you have some. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, for that. And the next country we'll be speaking about is India. And Mr. Ajit Sengupta, if you would like to provide your intervention here, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. And at the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting us and giving a perspective. So insofar as energy efficiency in India is concerned, so we have the Energy Conservation Act, which was passed by the Indian Parliament in 2001. And of course, subsequently, it has been amended twice, once in 2010 and then again in 2022. So, of course, if we look at the energy efficiency scenario, so India is the third largest energy consumer. And we, of course, most of this energy consumption is happening due to the fossil fuel sources, which are like the natural resources which we are endowed with. And energy efficiency, of course, has played a very crucial role in our sustainable growth pathways. And if we look at the latest report of International Energy Agency, so the energy intensity, of course, has decreased by around 20% since the last decade. And in 2024, the estimated energy intensity improvement of India is around 2.5%, vis-a-vis the global average of around 1%. So I think so we feel that we are doing pretty well insofar as delivering on energy efficiency is concerned. Due to the various energy efficiency measures that our government has undertaken, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which is the nodal agency which has been tasked to promote the efficient use of energy and its conservation in the country, has been able to deliver 321 million ton of CO2 reduction, which is roughly around 10% of the country's total emissions. And if we can talk in terms of the million tons of oil equivalent, it translates into something like 53 million tons of oil equivalent. So of course, we have been able to lead the discussion on doubling energy efficiency. And during India's presidency in 2023, we were able to have an outcome as part of the New Delhi's leaders' declaration, wherein the leaders took note of the voluntary action plan to double the energy efficiency. And subsequently, of course, as we have seen in the earlier presentation, the same was adopted in the COP28 global stocktake decision as well. And insofar as India's emission targets are concerned, almost half of our NDC targets are expected to be achieved through energy efficiency. As I mentioned, we have this Energy Conservation Act, and one of the mandate that the Energy Conservation Act has given us is to come up with labels, energy efficiency levels through defining minimum energy performance standards for appliances and equipments. And if we look at the impact of the standards and labeling scheme since the last 15 years, the scheme was launched in 2007. So it has almost been is able to kind of contribute almost 60% of the total emission reduction that we are achieving as of now. So this is the kind of impact that we are seeing. And as on date, there are 38 appliances which are and equipments which are covered under the ambit of the standards and labeling program, out of which 16 appliances and equipments are under the mandatory regime. When I say it is covered under the mandatory regime, it means that the sale of those and the production of those unstirred appliances are banned legally, and the remaining 22 appliances are under the voluntary regime. And we expect that with the further strengthening of the standards and labeling program for appliances and equipments, the impact is going to increase in the years to come. Briefly talking about the way ahead, so we are, as I mentioned, our energy intensity improvement rate has been one of the fastest if you compare with the other countries in the globe. So we are also kind of party to the global stocktake decision, and we are within the country also. We are aggressively kind of trying to frame policies so as to double the rate of energy efficiency improvement by 2030. And we would also like to make the India's minimum energy performance standards the global best for key appliances. Particularly, we feel that the cooling related appliances, the air conditioners, and other cooling related appliances, which are expected to see a huge growth in the next few years due to the development that we are going to see in the country. So we would expect that our standards and the minimum performance standards for all the appliances are at par as the global best by in the next 5 to 10 years. We are also accelerating the pace and intensity of the standards and labeling program with a primary focus on the cooling and heating devices. And would be glad to announce that we are also organizing a national level stakeholder consultation to begin with on doubling the rate of energy efficiency improvement in the month of February at New Delhi. And once we are our national stakeholders are in line and in sync and aligned with the thought process of the global of doubling the energy efficiency, we'll then of course have a next round of event at the international level that also we plan. And of course, IEA has been a staunch supporter of India in having this event, and of class is also playing a crucial role. So we hope that when we take this whole thing from national to an international level, we'll be able to kind partner with many of you. And we'll really look forward to meeting you, many of you in person as well during those times. And others, we are also preparing a roadmap for doubling the energy efficiency through appliances by 2030. Because the kind of impact that appliance labeling program has given us, we feel that it is a crucial sector and it is going to contribute hugely in India's pathway towards doubling energy efficiency. Thank you very much for your patient hearing and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention, Mr. Sangupta. So the next piece of this webinar here is a question and answer. And Ari, I will let you take it away. For those of you that have questions, please utilize the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen. You will see Q&A as the method. If you just put something in the chat, I will try to move it there, but please use the question and answer if possible. And if all of our panelists could turn on their video, that would be wonderful so that we can see you as you answer the questions. And with that, Ari, please feel free to go ahead.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Thank you all of the panelists and people who've spoken so far. Really appreciate your contributions to this webinar. My name is Ari Reeves. I'm the Senior Director of Research at CLASP, and we're really delighted to be putting together this webinar today. I wanted to start, well, as people are putting their questions into the Q&A box, I wanted to start with a question for Sophie. Sophie, could you tell us a bit about how the progress towards doubling the rate of improvement in the energy efficiency is being tracked? Are there efforts afoot to track that progress and hold people accountable?
Yes, so I am not in charge of this specifically, but I have a bit of an answer anyway. Yes, we have trackers on this, and we ask the governments, of course, for their numbers and try to build this aggregation to understand if we are on track or not. This is globally. Of course, we do not start all from the same point, and the idea is that the whole all together, let's say at global level, we double this rate and go towards this 4% per year. I'll be happy to transfer any more specific demand to my colleagues that are really behind the models, but I can tell you that we publish also every year a report on energy efficiency, and when we update this report annually, we dig in the calculations of this yearly improvement.
Excellent. Thank you, Sophie, for that. I would like to turn to Alexandra Maciel, and thank you for your presentation. It's clear that Brazil has some strong ambition around appliance energy efficiency. My question is really around the motivating factors. Like, what are the goals that the Brazilian government is trying to achieve? I understand there are lots of different possible impacts that can be or benefits that can be derived from greater appliance efficiency. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about, thinking beyond the CO2 impacts, which of course are very important. What is it within the government's discussions and decision making that really motivates action on appliance efficiency?
Thank you, Ari, for your question. I believe nowadays the main motivation, something that is really driving our actions right now, is the signature of that commitment for doubling energy efficiency, the international commitment. I think it's in the central of our discussions here. And because of that, we are designing our regulatory agenda based on trying to identify some baseline and identifying what we have to establish for different equipments in order to achieve this international commitment. And in this case, I will have to thank CLASP as well, because I think the tool that CLASP has designed and tailored for Brazil, called MEPSI, is helping us a lot, because with that, we, based on very concrete indicators, we can prioritize the equipment in which we have to deal with for the next years. And we also base our evaluation in our decisions on which appliances to work with. We base this in this survey that we used to do here in Brazil, called the Survey for Possession and Habits of on the Consumption of Electrical Appliances. We launched this survey for the residential sector and also for the commercial sector. And based on these possession surveys, we identify the tendency of growing some appliances on the purchasing of some appliances here in Brazil. And so I think it's more or less like this.
Very interesting. Alexandra, you mentioned MEPSI, and just for everyone's benefit, MEPSI is a tool that's publicly available to everyone on CLASP's website. So you're encouraged to check it out. You can use it to estimate the climate and energy savings impacts from improving the efficiency of appliances and equipment in your country as well. That's very interesting to hear, Alexandra. So it sounds like the focus really is on achieving the doubling efficiency target. And would you say that appliances and equipment are expected to enable Brazil to achieve a large part of that? Like they're responsible for a large part of that effort. Yeah. I want to turn now to Mr. Sengupta. You cited some impressive numbers. I think you said that energy efficiency is expected to contribute about half of India's broader emissions reductions target. And then looking back to last year, within energy efficiency, appliance standards and labels are thought to have achieved about 60% of the emissions avoided through energy efficiency. Those are both, big numbers. And then looking ahead, I want to just really applaud India's ambition to make India's MEPS world-leading MEPS. What are some of the steps that you mentioned a session coming up in February, a meeting coming up in February. What are some of the other steps that BEE is taking in order to achieve these very ambitious goals?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, as I've highlighted in my presentation, appliance energy efficiency improvement is likely to play a crucial role insofar as achieving our doubling the energy efficiency targets. But apart from appliances, we're also focusing on other demand sector interventions in the industry, the buildings, of course, including appliances and transport. So industry and transport are two other, I would say, crucial sectors, which will also contribute a large way in enabling us to double the energy efficiency targets. If I talk about specific appliances, then as I mentioned, the cooling related appliances with the kind of temperature rise that we are seeing in the country in the last decade or so, and with that, the increased penetration of air conditioning related appliances. So coming up with more stringent appliance standards and making a longer term trajectory for cooling related appliances will not only enable us to become the manufacturing hub for cooling for air conditioners in the coming decade, but also will enable us a long way, and it will lead to like enabling the doubling efficiency, and of course also at the same time we feel that it will continue to give us the kind of impacts through appliance leveling program that we are seeing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking to see if there are any unanswered questions in the Q&A.
Yes, it seems like there is one that is from Linda, saying, how can we make appliance energy efficiency measures more practical and relevant for countries like Nigeria, where access to affordable and reliable energy is still a major challenge for many communities? What tailored solutions could work best in this context?
Okay. Any panelists that would like to take that question? The question was, how do we make the make it more practical? How can we make appliance energy efficiency measures more practical and relevant?
Maybe I have not the solution, but one hint.
Please, Sophie.
Yeah, because I think 2 years ago, when we collected the market data for Ghana and South Africa, we also had a trial in Nigeria because there is an energy label there, but it wasn't enforced. So the regulation, this underlines another problem that we can encounter when regulations do exist, but their enforcement is a problem. So there is probably many questions to be asked on how to make this enforcement a bit more concrete. But when you see that countries like Ghana can make it very well, there should be solutions for all countries to implement those regulations, and including the maps that are not that are maybe easier as a first step, and then accompanied with energy efficiency labels. It's just a hint. It's not a ready-made solution.
Mm-hmm.
And Aris, if may I think I can add to that.
Yes, please.
I think one of the problems is that energy efficiency has been seen as a secondary issue, and it's really very interlinked with energy access. Like renewable energy access, energy efficiency policies should be always progressing at the same level. It is very frequent for us that we work with several countries that have very large access gaps, that they see energy efficiency as a way to reduce energy demand, when it's the opposite. Through energy efficiency, we can really power more devices and improve affordability and really increase the level of productive energy uses. So yes, to add to Sophie's response, I think there is also this way of how we frame energy efficiency and how we also can go outside and have international funds for energy efficiency. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rosa. And I'll also mention that a major part of CLASP's work involves energy efficiency as a lever to expand energy access. We put out a major report last year called Leave No One Behind. I think that was in September or October of 2024. And if you want to learn more about energy efficiency in energy access, I recommend taking a look at that report, which you can find on our website. Any other questions? Oh, here's a, oh, no, that's one we just answered. Looks like we were joined by Maputi Nagodi from South Africa. I don't know if Maputi wants to say anything about appliances and climate plans. You might be able to promote them to be a panelist, if so. Thank you, Lauren, for putting a link to the Leave No One Behind paper in the chat. Appreciate that. Any other questions for the panelists? Oh, and Sophie, I see that you put in a link to the product efficiency call to action. Great. That's in the Q&A. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll wrap things up. Good. I think I'll wrap things up here. Thanks again to all of the speakers and those who intervened, and also very much a big thanks to those who participated in the webinar today. We were talking about a very important topic. We learned about some tools that folks can use to help them increase or adopt and increase ambition around appliance efficiency. There's a link here to the Net Zero Appliances NDC Toolkit. There were a number of upcoming events mentioned, including the IEA's training week coming up in April, a big conference on energy efficiency in Brussels in June, I believe. And there'll be the slides as well as other resources mentioned in the webinar will be circulated to all those who registered for the webinar today. So thanks again. I wish everyone luck in converting commitment into action as it relates to appliance efficiency, and hope to see you again later in the year.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. It was a pleasure to hear from all of our panelists here on this incredibly important topic as we've just begun 2025 and we're moving into the COP30 deadlines. Please find more information on the NDC partnership on this slide here. We also have a newsletter that you can sign up for on our website if you go to ndcpartnership.org. if you'd like to be alerted of any other upcoming webinars in this series. With that, we will be sending up a follow-up email to all of our registrants that include the slides and the recording, as well as any resources and links to events that were mentioned during the webinar. So thank you all so much for attending, and we hope that you enjoyed the webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.